So when we spoke earlier in the week, you said you wanted some running in the dry. You got that today. It looked like a pretty productive morning out there. How do you sum it up from your side?
It's nice to get out in the dry and do some running, because obviously our first day was in the miserable wet weather. And it was good to get out and kind of see. Obviously I drove in Ferrari just one lap or 2 laps I think we did, just to kind of feel the car. So it was great to be able to get some running and understand the tires. We did the C2 and the C1, so cold that the tires are not really working so much, but got through our program and a bit of an understanding of where the car is at and where we need to improve.
Can a single driver completely change the confidence of a Formula One team with just 57 wet laps? Tuesday, January 27, 2026 did not seem to have the slightest potential to be remembered. It dawned gray over the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya, and around 10:30 a.m., rain began to fall with unexpected persistence, erasing any chance of the teams being able to complete representative test programs in dry conditions. The paddock entered a kind of lethargy. Several teams directly covered their cars. Some small teams limited themselves to performing systems checks. Others did not even open the garages. No one wanted to risk expensive machinery or draw the wrong conclusions on an unpredictable track. In fact, that day was marked as unrepresentative by various technical means before the stopwatch even hit lunchtime. However, amidst this atmosphere of resignation, Ferrari did something that broke with its recent tradition of strategic prudence. As Charles Leclerc completed a brief dry track run in the morning, the team was already clear that the focus of the day was not going to be pure performance, but rather the structural validation of their new concept car, the SF26. The interesting thing was not only that they chose to ride in the wet, a decision that in itself already reflected a different attitude, but that they decided to put their brand new addition, Lewis Hamilton, behind the wheel, in his first real contact with compromised conditions since joining the Maranello team. This simple fact elevated the technical value of the day to a completely different level, because Hamilton was not just another driver testing the car. He was a 7-time world champion facing his first day of serious testing in adverse conditions, without previous references, without margin for error, and with a car designed entirely under revolutionary regulations that distanced him even from his most recent experience at Mercedes. And yet, he accepted the challenge without hesitation. Ferrari, furthermore, did not go out on the track with a generic program. They had planned to test for the first time the partial active aerodynamics mode, a regulatory innovation from 2026 that allowed them to open only the front wing in rainy conditions, keeping the rear wing closed to maximize stability. It was one of the many new tools that the regulations put on the table and that no team had yet validated on a real track. But Ferrari, against all odds, used precisely that seemingly inconsequential day to execute it. Hamilton completed 57 laps in those conditions, while the majority watched from the wall. Using intermediate tires first and then extreme rain, without chasing times or headlines, their objective was clear: to understand how the SF26 responded to the most unpredictable conditions. Each lap was a data collection. Every entry and exit to the pits, a deep conversation with the engineers. And without looking for it, the day acquired an unprecedented technical value. Because everything the team had designed, from the wind tunnel to the simulator in Maranello, began to make sense just that day, in that rain, in those treacherous curves. To outside eyes, it was a boring day. But internally, at Ferrari, a disturbing suspicion was beginning to form. Something was happening in the data that they had not seen before. The correlations were perfect. The behavior of the car coincided point by point with the virtual models. What they had dreamed of building seemed to be working, and it was doing so in the hands of a driver who was just beginning his relationship with the team. That rainy Tuesday, apparently barren for many, had just become a historic day. Not because of what was seen, but because of what Ferrari discovered. Over the last decade, Formula One has evolved into a sport where the value of telemetry sometimes exceeds that of stopwatches. It is no longer enough to set good times. What really sets great drivers apart is their ability to translate a new car into interpretable data, into useful information that transforms a concept on paper into a real racing weapon. And that is exactly what Lewis Hamilton achieved with the SF26 from the first lap he completed in the wet. It didn't take long for Ferrari engineers to notice. The data was not simply correct, but with a consistency that is rarely seen even in the best days of testing. Everything that had been projected in the simulator, from the mass distribution to the behavior of the aerodynamic flow in the traction phase, found an almost exact mirror in what the telemetry showed. The alignment between the virtual car and the real one was not only unusual, it was almost unsettling. Those responsible for technical correlation, a critical function in any F1 team, reviewed the data several times. They looked for calculation errors. They reviewed the analysis scripts. They couldn't believe they were seeing that precision without any external manipulation. But it wasn't a mistake. It was Hamilton. The way the Briton interpreted the car was what truly broke the mold. Its styling adapted almost organically to the SF26, as if the car had been molded to suit it. He didn't need dozens of turns to find his balance. From the first turns, he was already adjusting energy regeneration in unplanned areas, exploring lateral stability under asymmetrical braking, and adapting his support points to critical curves with a technical aggressiveness that surprised even the most skeptical engineers. Instead of following the traditional pattern of progressive adaptation, Hamilton assumed the role of active developer. He began to test curve entry strategies that were not planned. He began experimenting with a shorter rotation of the front axle to reduce the neutral phase time in mid-corner. And most notable was its ability to keep the car's platform stable without compromising aerodynamic support in low-grip conditions. That quality, one of the most difficult to achieve in a car with active charging, placed it on a different level of technical interpretation. He didn't just drive. I was writing a new grammar for Ferrari with the car. In terms of hybrid management, the British pilot's intelligence reached unexpected heights. The new 50-50 system, much more demanding than previous power units due to the instantaneous redistribution of torque, not only did not bother him, but he used it to his advantage. It took advantage of aggressive energy recovery in unstable areas of the circuit, something that normally generates loss of traction, and validated that the SF26 responded more efficiently when more demands were placed on it, not less. That completely changed Ferrari's interpretation of its own car. Until that moment, they thought they should treat him delicately. But Hamilton showed that this car had been designed to be pushed, challenged, taken beyond what was safe. One of the most relevant surprises appeared when analyzing the average speed curves. There, where the balance between aerodynamic support, mass control and chassis sensitivity is most difficult to find, Hamilton discovered a hidden margin. He slightly modified the braking point, reduced the rotation time and applied the accelerator earlier than expected. This repeated pattern revealed that the SF26 could support more longitudinal load in transition phase, and that its rear axle was not only solid, but capable of delivering sustained linear traction without immediate thermal degradation. That was possibly the biggest revelation of the day. The car didn't just work. It was more stable, more versatile, and more aggressive than Ferrari had dared to dream. From the wall, the reading was clear. The car had greater potential than previously thought, and Hamilton didn't need weeks of work to discover it. In just one session, he challenged the very architecture of the SF26 and demonstrated that it was not necessary to adapt to what was there, but could bring to light what was still hidden. That ability to extract performance without altering the test plan, without damaging the car, without errors. That is what separates a champion from the rest. And that day, in the rain of Barcelona, Ferrari realized that it had not only signed a driver. He had signed a technical architect with the ability to rebuild all of Maranello's confidence from the asphalt. What happened in Barcelona was as unexpected as it was profound. In a day that most filed as anecdotal due to the rain, Ferrari and Hamilton could have unlocked something much bigger than a simple technical advance. But this is where the great mystery arises. Was all this a brilliant exception in specific conditions, or are we witnessing the first signs of a real, lasting and structural transformation within the most pressured team in the paddock? The perfect correlations, Hamilton's immediate interpretation of the SF26, the validation of new aerodynamic tools, and the complete absence of errors in a complex scenario, all of that sounds like a rebirth. But Ferrari's history forces us to be cautious. It would not be the first time that a preseason promise has been diluted by the rigor of race weekends. It would not be the first time that technical enthusiasm crashes against the unpredictability of race strategy, internal political pressure, or the evolution of rivals such as McLaren and Red Bull. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.